Hello and welcome to Miniature Adventures. I'm Big Lee, and this week I want to ask, are Wargamers by nature or by nurture? So we're doing another subscribers questions today, and this one comes from Honorary Reject Jonathan Freitag. Jonathan's been writing his excellent blog, the Palouse Wargaming Journal, for many years, and now runs remote games for groups across the globe. And the group that I belong to, the Rejects, have been lucky enough to play several games with Jonathan. And in a recent email exchange, he suggested a question for consideration. Now, I recently discussed, a couple of videos ago, I discussed Cradle to the Grave, part of which I described getting children involved from a very early age in the hobby, how to nurture them. So he therefore quite reasonably asked, are wargamers born with this predisposition, or is it all down to development and nurture? So the nature versus nurture debate goes back a long way, both in scientific circles and in literature. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, published in 1818, has the nature versus nurture debate at its forefront for both of the protagonists in the book.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
The debate concentrates on the extent to which particular aspects of behaviour are the product either of inherited, i.e. genetic, or acquired, e.g. learned, influences. Nature is what we think of as our hardwired predisposition to certain traits, and is therefore linked to genetic inheritance and other biological factors. Nurture, on the other hand, is generally taken as the influence of external factors after conception, i.e. a product of the environment, exposure to life experiences and learning on an individual. It's now recognised that nature and nurture interact in a host of qualitatively different ways, so it's no longer one or the other, but a blend of the two that makes us who we are as adults. But what about wargamers? Well, behavioural genetics suggests that children of intelligent, curious and or creative parents will likely share those genetic traits. But it's also likely that children of parents with those traits will benefit from an environment and upbringing that will enhance those traits. So if you have an abiding interest in history, games and strategy, then it's quite likely that your genetic predisposition and your style of parenting will pass on to your children in some degree. And there's always exceptions to the rule, of course, and I'd hate to live in a world where children can be so easily defined, labelled or designated by their heritage alone. However, it is true that on the whole, these influencing factors do hold true. So maybe it is possible to suggest that gamers are both born into the hobby with very little choice in the matter. If, like me, such predeterministic rhetoric makes you a little uncomfortable, that maybe we could just say that there's a strong likelihood that nature and nurture make a wargamer who they are, but nothing is written in stone. But of course, which is important? Well, we have to ask, what is the element that crafts a new wargamer from our children? And by all means, disagree with me. This is the whole point of these conversation starters. But I'm convinced it largely comes down to upbringing. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I'm a strong believer in exposing children to art, history, politics, culture at an early age. It gives them all sorts of benefits, not least helping to broaden their outlooks, create inquiring minds, and helps foster critical thinking. All useful skills for the proto-wargamer of any age. Give your children the skills and the desire to learn, expose them to the hobby at the appropriate time, and see what happens. They may never become wargamers, but they will be more interesting and well-rounded adults as a result of their exposure. So what do you think? Are we born predisposed to become wargamers, or is it all up to our upbringing? Are we born blinking into the light, grasping for a dice, or are we putty in the hands of our parents and other guiding figures in our lives? Or maybe you believe both elements need to align perfectly, along with a dash of serendipity, placing you in the right place at the right time to spawn that new wargamer of the future generation. I'd love to hear what you think, of course, as always, in the comments. So if you enjoyed today's video, please like, subscribe and share. And if you want to keep up to date with weekly content from this channel, please tap the bell notification icon. So until next week, stay safe, keep gaming, and of course, keep rolling high.